go! Turn it up, let's go! Welcome to Dog Pro Radio! Welcome to Dog Pro Radio!
Are you overwhelmed trying to run your dog training business and market for it at the same time? Let's be honest, scaling isn't an option anymore. If you're not using Meta and Google Ads to market for your business, you have already fallen behind. And this year, it's gonna hurt more than it ever has before. We create proven Meta and Google Ads campaigns that will help grow your business and get more clients in the door. Every day that you wait is a day that your competition is taking action. And more importantly, taking leads from your business. So if you're ready to scale, click the link below to get started. We're offering an exclusive rate for IACP members. Get your free month of marketing today.
Welcome to Dog Pro Radio. Today we have Dee Hoult on the show. Dee was a speaker at our annual conference a few weeks ago and did an awesome presentation on free shaping and the use of a clicker. It was something you have to see in person. It was definitely a lot of fun. Dee is also the owner of Applause Your Paws. That's hard for me to say, Applause Your Paws, and is also the founder of a prison dog program called Magic City K9. Welcome to the show, Dee.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, Applause Your Paws can be a mouthful, but luckily after 20 years in business, I think Miami-Dade County is pretty good at saying it.
Good. I need some more practice from my end. It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard, but it is, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, I've got some exciting news since conference for you.
Let's hear it.
So I guess because I had used the shelter dogs during my presentation, they obviously got a lot of exposure that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten, which makes me feel really good. So all the dogs that left that weekend or that week, they all got a positive outcome, including Bing Bop, who actually moved back to my program in Miami. But as a result of a trainer that was there in my workshop at the IACP conference in Savannah, Bing Bop actually has already been adopted. So once he completes our Magic City K9 program, he will move back north to Virginia to his forever home. But he is already, adoption fee's been paid. He's spoken for. His new family's making arrangements to come to Miami at his graduation to pick him up from our training program. So I couldn't be happier. It was really good outcome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jason, we need a producer that could do like an applause button right now. Some sound effects.
If I had my roadcaster,
Yay!
I could make it happen.
Well, that's a cool story. We should definitely find a way to get that shared on social media, because I think everyone at the conference is going to remember those dogs.
Of course.
So, to see that they're adopted out, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thanks for the update.
Absolutely. Well, tell me, what do you want to know? I'm happy to share with you whatever you like. I'm still up here in the North Georgia mountains for a couple more weeks, and then I've got to head back to Miami and get back to, I guess, what I consider the usual grind of doing business at Applause Your Paws. I tend to work in my business when I'm in Miami, and I work on it when I'm away for the summer. So I'm wrapping up my bigger boss vision board items for the summer.
Good luck with that. That's never an easy task.
No.
Well, why don't we just start with your background? So anyone who's at conference, of course, heard your presentation and knows some of your background, but
Sure.
we also have a lot of listeners that were not at conference. So just want to walk us through who you are and what you're all about.
Of course. Well, I'm an only child. My name is Dee. I grew up in Austin, Texas, with a lot of dogs on a lot of property. And I think like all of us that start, that show an interest and maybe start in this industry, we grew up with dogs. We love dogs. We've always known that animals are going to be the thing for us, right? My story is a little different because my chosen career path was supposed to be oceanography. Specifically, I was really, when I went to University of Miami and studied marine science, oceanography and chemistry, I was really into what's called population dynamics, and specifically for sustainable fisheries. So I am a science nerd, like at heart. I love data, I love statistics, but I also love like wide open spaces, nature, the water, all the things. And so I did move, from growing up in Texas, I did move to Miami, Florida in 2001 to attend the University of Miami. They had one of the best marine science programs in the country when I went to school there 20 years ago. And it was amazing. I had a great education there. And I had this very defining moment in my senior year of college where I'm like, yes, I'm going to get a master's in science and we're going to go all the way. And I'm going to be Jacques Cousteau and I'm going to get my PhD and like all these things. And I sat down with one of my mentors. Her name was Linda Farmer. She passed away many years ago, but she was such a wonderful mentor to so many of us that were enrolled in the marine science program there at University of Miami. And she was a single woman, never married, never had kids, but very well respected in the scientific community in Miami with her research. And she sat me down and she said, I've watched you grow in our program. I've watched you serve our community, the leadership positions you hold on campus, all the things. And I don't think you're meant to go into oceanography. And I was kind of borderline devastated, because she was someone I really respected. And she's like, I just think you're going to be really unhappy if you're at sea like 9 months of the year with the same 6 people. And she was right. So I took that conversation to heart at the end of my undergraduate career of college. And I kind of was like, well, this is what I thought I was going to do since the 6th grade. Like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. So I took a job at the University of Miami. I was still living in Miami in the alumni relations department, specifically in development. So I was the administrative assistant for what's called a major gifts officer. And my boss, Anne, she could win people over in an amazing way that made them open up their checkbook and write a $5 million check to the University of Miami. I mean, she was an incredible, what we call friend raiser, right? Just through the nature of becoming her friend, you are sold, you're on board, and whatever she needs, you're there, And so, like, what's that movie Taken? Like, I've learned a very specific set of skills. Like, I feel like I learned so much from Anne. And then Anne, as my mentor at that time in my life, I think I was like 21. She's like, you need to get your MBA. And I was like, gross. Like, I don't want to do business at all. Like, that does not interest me at all. I'm just here for the paycheck. I'm buying my time. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And she goes, no, you need to get your MBA. You're here at the university anyway. Apply for such and such program. So again, I'm trusting the mentors in my life, right? I'm a trust the process kind of girl. So I trust another very respected female mentor in my life. And I go to this MBA open house orientation, whatever it is. And it comes to my attention that if you are a science major, right, and your GPA was X high, which mine was, you were exempt from having to sit for the GMAT. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, maybe I could do this. Now I don't have to take another exam. And that was actually a big part of the decision why I decided to do an MBA instead of a master's in education or a master's in science or something else, because there wasn't another test barrier. I go, whatever, like they'll just let me in, let's do it. And then the rest is sort of history. Like, doing that master's in business administration, it did have a marketing concentration, really changed the way that I viewed the world, made my mind think differently. And when you combine that with my inherent nerdiness, love of nature, love of the animals, that's what enabled me to say, I know how to do it. I see the roadmap and I will build a very large, successful dog training business. There you go.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I guess for the record, if you're talking to Anne, if she's calling anyone for a $5 million check, have her call Jason. That's your go-to.
Have her call Jason so that Jason can get her on board to raise money for ICP.
I know, right? Oh, she's incredible, man. And she's still working there at UM. Like, what she's done in her position is very, very admirable. And I'm so lucky to have learned so much from her that really has, I think, allowed me to grow my business very organically before Facebook was pay to play, before Instagram was invented, before any of that, just organically through friend raising.
Everybody needs an Ann in their life.
Yeah.
Or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to walk us through some details on Magic City K9? Once again, those of us at conference know a little bit about this already, but any detail you want to give is great.
All right, so then I'll give you, right? So continuation of the original story, right?
Yeah.
So I build Applause Your Paws slowly but surely. My business is quite large. I'm pretty confident it's one of the larger ones in the country, in terms of like volume of dogs that we see come through our doors, and also amount of staff, annual revenue, all the things. Like, I think there's not a lot of us who have been able to do that. And when I got pregnant in 2017, I only have one son, right? So he's an only child too. I recognized that I was not, I wanted to be able to stay home and raise my son, right? And I had to put certain systems in place to allow me to completely step away from Applause Your Paws to do that it would no longer be just dependent on me. So I did that. It took me a year. I stepped away from the business, let my team do their thing, stayed at home with my baby, which was awesome. And then when I got to a point where I was ready to come back full time to Applause Your Paws, I had this like realization they don't really need me. And that was hard. I was like, what do you mean you don't need me? Like, this is my company, it's my baby. No, we're fine. Do what you're doing, Dee. So that's when Magic City K9 was born, because I put myself out of one job and had to create another job for myself to keep myself with what I feel is now my purpose, right? So I had been hired in, gosh, what year? Probably 2009 by another organization, a 501c3 in Florida that did service dogs. They have a purpose-bred golden retrievers, like a breeding program for mobility work, and now they do some autism work as well. And I was hired by that company to run their prison dog programs in South Florida. So from 2009 up until all the way when I started Magic City K9, which was the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I was the head trainer in South Florida for that particular program. And as a result, I got to intimately know all the leadership and the players within Florida Department of Corrections, establish really good relationships with my wardens, assistant wardens, all that stuff. And then when it came time for them to want to open additional programs at other institutions, I was actually the contact that they thought of, right? Not that actual organization, because they only deal with me. And I was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity. I've already been working with my municipal shelter for so many years. I support them wholeheartedly, and the very hard work that they have to do in Miami with how many animals we sadly have in our shelter system in Miami. And I saw it as a way to really still further have a positive outcome for a lot of these dogs that are sitting 100+ days in Miami-Dade Animal Services. And because they're hyper, they're unruly, they get adopted, they get returned, or they just get overlooked. So I did get solicited by Department of Corrections to move forward, but I already knew what I was doing from working the other program. So I, got with my attorney, I opened my own 501c3, I did all those things, and then Magic City K9 was born. And then you fast forward to now, so from like 2017 to now, we actually just downsized our program this year for a number of reasons, but we had gotten up to having our dogs in 3 different institutions, right? We had, 12 to 14 dogs per program, and we had something like 70 something men that were involved in our vocational program. So it really has been able to develop into this really large, successful organization where, like, we're not only getting to save the dogs from the shelter, but unlike other prison dog programs in the country, because mine is run by a trainer, right, by me and my staff, we're able to actually teach our inmates how to become professional dog trainers. And that's what makes Magic City K9 so different from other prison dog programs where, like, okay, like some like no offense to anyone that hears this, but like some other random volunteer comes in, teaches basic skills to these inmates. They train a dog for 6 to 8 weeks, they get their little certificate, and then that's it. Ours is actually a vocational program. Inmates that are in our program are in our program for anywhere from, 3 to 5 years before their release. And with that in mind, we are equipping them with the same high-level skills that you would probably get if you went to Star Mark Academy, or you went to another school that's actually like a live on campus where you have instructors that are growing your skills as a professional trainer. And that's really what that's what the core of my program is about. The fact that we save dogs is icing on the cake. It really is about the skills that we're giving these individuals so they can get released and have that option if what their plan is doesn't work out for them.
So the numbers you walked through there, the number of dogs in the program, the number of inmates, I was assuming it would be kind of one person to one dog, but it sounds like there's twice as many inmates as dogs.
Correct.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so typically we have 2 inmates assigned to each dog. One inmate is what we'd consider like the primary trainer, and then the other one is like his assistant trainer. We have worked with women in the past, but you'll hear me say he, or him a lot because our population at this point is all adult male inmates. But we try to stagger it so that when the primary trainer gets to the end of his sentence, we call EOS, right? When he EOS's end of sentence and walks proudly out those doors, if he's mid-dog, that dog's not going to be left without a handler. And his job, which is also tied into the program, is to mentor his own apprentice trainer. So he has to already be training his successor for when he leaves the program. And sometimes you wake up sick and you need an extra handler. Like, at a basic level, each dog gets 2 people just so that we know the dog is also always cared for.
So all of these inmates are going to be released sometime. None of them are people that are there for life or for...
So most of them
crazy
will
amount of
be
time?
released. We do have a couple of lifers in our program, and those trainers strategically are our like mentor lead trainers. And because of maybe their length of stay, maybe they've already been incarcerated for 20 years at this point, they are allowed, regardless of what their crime was, to participate in the program because they can provide our program with stability. So it is pretty typical that you might have you might have 1 or 2 lifers in a group of men that will, reach the end of their sentence where they will not. That's a good question.
Jason, anything burning a hole in your brain? I've got so many questions about safety and picking out the inmates. They're not even dog questions.
Yeah,
right
and by
now.
the way, feel free to ask me whatever you want to ask. Please don't be shy. I love talking about this, and the way that I see my job as an advocate for these guys as well. I think if we don't allow people to ask us the kind of more awkward, hard questions about maybe what that prison life is like on the inside for the guys, then that's where some of the misconceptions come in. So please don't feel like there's any question you can't ask. You're welcome to ask it.
Well, I know my next one is just safety. How do they ensure your safety? And what I'm thinking specifically is someone listening to this podcast that is like, that sounds kind of cool. I'd like to help people.
Yes.
Not sure I want to be in a prison around incarcerated men. How is that handled? What does it feel like for you?
Sure. That's an excellent question. And I actually, I have an NBC reporter that's going to be coming to do a piece on me in the fall. And just yesterday she emailed me and she's like, can you guarantee my safety? And when I read her email, I sort of I giggled right then. I just go are you for real? Of course you're fine. But I also have been doing this a long time, right? I can remember, I tend to be I'm a very confident individual. I don't really worry about my safety, generally speaking. So I wasn't nervous walking into the prison the first day I did. But in having visitors come, hosting adoption events at the prison, having guests come in, to see showcase type events, obviously safety is a big thing that comes up for most people. And so, the way I try to describe it is with my inmates in particular, they are some of the best of the best. Firstly, they wouldn't be able to participate in these programs if they didn't already qualify. And that's something that Department of Corrections is going to qualify them based on their behaviors, lack of disciplinary actions that they've had while they've been incarcerated, and also the nature of the crime, right? Because there are some crimes that will exclude you completely from participating, not just in my program, but in any type of these types of programs, because they are a privilege, right? So you take into account the fact that these guys already know it's a privilege. They have to have a certain standard of behavior coming in, and they take it very seriously. So we do have like in all prisons, there's always going to be an officer or someone that's assigned that has eyes on you. There's never a time when like someone doesn't have eyes on you. But I have never, in all of my years as a woman, and keep in mind, like I'm 43 now, but I was in my early 20s when I started these programs. So I was a lot cuter then. I mean, I know I'm adorable now, but I was a lot cuter then, walking into a room of all men that were my dad's age. That was my population. And they were supposed to take me seriously. Like, so what I found over time is that I actually feel the safest when I am there with these men. And the reason is because I know that if something were to happen, right? And this is just me speaking personally. If something were to happen, I would be their first priority to protect. And that comes from having this very profound relationship with these individuals because I am their mentor and I am there to serve them. And I really genuinely have never worried about my safety around them. And there have been a couple of times in my very long career inside corrections where maybe we're out on the yard, right? And what does that mean? Like there's some guys over there playing basketball, there's other guys jogging, there's other guys working out, and then here we are over here training our dogs together. We'll be out on the yard and something will happen. Maybe two inmates will get into a disagreement. Things start to maybe escalate. You see officers starting to walk. And in that moment you go, oh my gosh, what's going to go down? Just the energy of my men, they make me feel safe the same way my husband makes me feel safe. So never as a woman have I worried about my safety in those contexts. I am perfectly fine in combination with their loyalty and also just the officers doing their job. So a guest walking into a correctional institution, they're not going to turn you loose with people that actually pose a threat to you. You have to understand firstly that even if these men don't know you, their interaction with you is a privilege and their corrections is not going to put your safety at risk like just right off the bat. So it's very safe. And I have talked to other women specifically about that at IACP, and other dog training conferences where I've given my presentation on how to start a prison program. And I'll always get that question. And I say, don't worry about it. Like, I understand that that's a concern, but you really don't have to worry about it. Your Department of Corrections already knows the drill. And these guys are going to be so excited to welcome you with open arms. They will have your back 100%.
All right. Well, glad you're staying safe.
Yeah. Do you like that answer?
So the dogs stay with the inmates at the prison, correct?
Yes, that is correct. They live full time. Yeah,
Okay. How
with
do
their
they have to
inmate
change things up? How do they have to? I'm sure they have to make some concessions, right? To
Yes.
make sure that they're able to take care of the dogs in the way that they need to.
Yes. So from the Department of Corrections side, the ways in which the prison has to make different accommodations for dog programs is a normal inmate would not be able to keep a bin full of items in their room. Like, that's just never going to happen. But if you're in the dog program, you got more, you're like us, like normal handlers on the street. You got a lot of shit. Okay. You got a lot of shit and it's all in a box and you're like, what is this? I haven't seen this ball in 3 months. Oh my God, I forgot I had that tug toy, whatever. And that's always tends to be the complaint of some of the sergeants and the majors when they do like these, unexpected sweeps. Like they just sweep the whole dorm. Always the dog dorm gets in trouble because the people that aren't the everyday administrators there are like, why do they have all this stuff? And then like our point people who actually work at corrections have to be like, well, they need this because blah, blah, blah. We've always done it this way. This is why it's not a threat. This is why they're allowed to have it. So yes, there's definitely from being allowed to have different items needed for dog training to even being allowed to go out like the back door of that dorm into a fenced in area where the dogs can go potty. There are accommodations that the prisons have to get used to making. And that is one of the biggest pain points when you're starting new programs, because if someone at your particular institution has never dealt with one of these programs, it feels like they're going to violate all these security protocols and they have a really hard time getting their head around like, how can this ever work? And I'm like, trust me, it works. It works. I promise. We got toy selection, rope selection, all these things down to a science so that we stay in safety protocol while still allowing our trainer handlers to have all the equipment they need for success.
Are there kennels on site? I'm assuming the dogs are not staying overnight with the inmates. They're in
Yeah,
kennels
they live
somewhere?
full time, Matt. Full time.
In the cell.
Yes, like in your bedroom, sleeping next to your bed. Yep. Yes, they live in the cell with the inmate.
Okay, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's great. And they do have a crate. The dogs are not crated unless it's a security count. And that's more because like they have a handler assigned to them 24/7. There's no reason that these dogs have to be kenneled unless, you know, the inmate has to go to medical and leave their dog, in which case your second inmate comes into play. So there's typically always someone that can stay with the dog. But during security counts, when every inmate has to be sitting on their bunk, motionless, not moving, you know, inmates get counted multiple times a day to make sure everyone's still there. That's when the dogs have to go into their kennel. So they do have a kennel in their room, which is very, very small. So in that room, you've got 2 bunk beds, a toilet, a dog crate, and what we call a foot locker, which is probably like, I don't know, it's probably about 3 feet, maybe 3 feet across by maybe like 2 feet deep. And that's where like all of your personal belongings as a human have to fit in there.
I'm a little caught up on the fact that they need to count inmates twice a day. That seems so
Oh, it's like
low
3.
tech
It's like three
that
times a day. Yeah, that's
that
standard.
blows my mind that I would think you would have already known someone had escaped if they escaped. But
No, I mean they
I know very little about prisons.
There you go. Yeah, they count 3 times a day. And just something funny, like I'm always so annoyed if I get to the prison and they're doing what's called a master roster count, which means that they will check every inmate against their actual ID, like to see their picture, to make sure that they are who like. You are supposed to be in this bunk bed in this room, and the picture on your card matches the face that I'm looking at. And that takes like 3 times as long as a normal count, where they're just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like they're just counting. So if I show up and they're doing like an unexpected master roster, I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna be here a while because all the inmates can't move. There's no movement on the compound when security counts are being done. So yeah, don't make me tell you my story about the one time I lost my car key. That was fun.
Sounds like a weapon right there.
Sounds like somebody's gonna escape and drive off in my car is what it sounds like. Shuts down a whole Dee Hoult successfully shuts down an entire prison for 2.5 hours and becomes the least favorite person in the planet to everybody.
Or they take it and they aerate somebody a little bit with it.
I mean, it's just a fob, but yeah.
Oh, no key. Okay. Little safer.
I was driving an Audi at the time. It's like push to start. Like, I don't know. No fun.
Yeah, I knew that most of those programs, they lived in the cell with the inmate because many years ago, we ended up with a dog. She lived with us for years. It was a female bloodhound. She came from a prison program in Kentucky.
Cool.
Bloodhounds, as you probably know, are not the best house dogs as a general rule. But man, this dog was like the best house dog because she came from a prison program. She lived in a cell, and she never had accidents in the house. She was very well behaved in the house. She'd go put herself in her own crate at like 8:30 at night. She had her own routine. And yeah, I mean, one of the best dogs. We ended up training her to do some search and rescue work. But yeah, she's an amazing dog. She came from a Kentucky prison program.
Well, and I love that you've had that experience as an adopter because I feel that like our adopters really do have that same experience you just described, which is these dogs really understand how to just live with and chill with a person.
Mhm.
And, you know, you layer that on top of the fact that they can also do advanced obedience commands. You know, if you were, at least with my program, if you're an experienced handler, right? And I have more of a AKC obedience competition background with my own dogs. I could walk out of my prison program with any of my dogs and walk into that, once I have a bond with that animal, right? Walk into the AKC ring and take first place in novice. Like, our dogs get trained to a really high level, but they also know how to just chill out, right? And I think that's like one of the hardest skills that people can't teach their dogs, and that's why they drive them crazy. Their dogs don't know how to just relax, you know?
Yeah, it seems like it's not really optional in the prison.
It's not. They
They
have.
they
Yes.
have to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
they
can
have
you imagine a bloodhound pacing the cell and baying?
That's the worst. Whenever new dogs move in, and I'm always like, have fun, you guys, because you know that like someone's going to be barking or screaming, and then all the other inmates are annoyed. Because at least in our programs, the inmates, if you've ever watched like a jail show or a prison show, they're like 2-tiered dorms. So there's a bottom floor, and then there's stairs, and then there's an upper floor of inmates, and they're kind of like in a pod. So you have like maybe 4 units that revolve around this central officer's station where the inmate has all their cameras and everything and is watching, right? That's how our prison looks like, where my dogs are. But my bottom floor of both of my dog dorms is inmates in my program. The top floor, on the other hand, are inmates who do not participate in the dog program. They're general population inmates, but they do have a certain orientation for like safety, what to do, not to do, interact with the dogs, and they have to be on board not to get in the way or complain about dog training. I mean, you're living in the dog dorm. You have to let the guys do their job, right? And a lot of the guys that will sign up to live in the dog dorm do that because it just feels better. It's more relaxed, and you get to pet dogs. Like, why wouldn't you want to be there?
Yeah, to that point, my next question is, how much competition is there amongst the inmates to be a part of that program? I'm sure you can't take everybody, but how much competition is there for people to get into that program to be working with the dogs?
So I think initially when my program started, there was a lot of competition. I would have random inmates come up to me in the yard to be like, hey, Miss Dee, my name's whoever. I just got here from wherever, another prison, right? I'd really like to be in your dog program. So I put in my request. I want to introduce myself. I used to get a lot of that. But as time has gone on, Jason, I think the word on the prison street is that, like, Dee Hoult don't play. Her program is serious, and this is not a free ride for you. So if you're not prepared to come in and work hard in this program, you're not going to come around and sit and like play with the puppies all day. Like, and that's the thing with us as professional dog trainers, right? Like, our friends are like, oh my God, your job. Like, I'd love to have your job. I'm like, would you really though? Because I clean half the day. I pick up poop. I have to sweat. It's very physical. As we get older, now I threw out my back again. Like, it's like all the things, right? So we don't have as much of a line anymore that we did, because you'll also maybe be curious to find out that some people just want to be in the dog program because they have access to rooms that are air conditioned.
Not
That's
a bad
important.
reason.
Yeah, especially in Florida, because this blows people's mind too. Our prisons are not air conditioned. So don't get me started on that topic of like humane treatment of people, because that's a whole nother podcast, right? But our inmates do not have air conditioning in Florida state prisons. And it is hot.
That's how hot are we talking? Do you think it gets on the average summer day?
Brutal. If these inmates did not know what they were doing in Miami, we, like, knock on wood, we've never had a dog, be at risk or pass away of heat stroke in our programs, despite the fact that we don't have air conditioning. But if they weren't very diligent about protecting their dogs, it would pose a serious threat to us. And it's just getting hotter. So, with the ventilation that we have put in place in the actual dorms where the dogs live, we have a lot of extra fans that the other dorms don't have to keep air circulating, which is its own challenge, by the way, because then the fans are loud. I mean, you can just imagine having to hear them all day, all night. Like, what? Like, you can't hear anything. It's probably 95 to 98 degrees in that dorm. It's hot. So in the summer months in Miami, our inmates are very strict about keeping our dogs inside. It's all concrete, so they'll like ice down, water down an area for them, even in their cell. They can lay on the cool. We've got cooling mats. We have pools outside. They're very strict. Your day starts at like 5:30 a.m. at the prison anyway. So they have opportunity to walk and exercise their dogs before the sun comes up. And then they have to be allowed to do it when the sun goes down, because it's just this time of year, it's very difficult to manage.
So, as a follow up to what Jason said earlier about adopting that bloodhound, how long are dogs in the program? And I'm assuming the goal is to get all of them adopted out
Yeah.
at some point. Like, what's the average length of stay?
Yeah. So my minimum length of stay for dogs in my program is 12 weeks. So 12 to 16 weeks, depending on who the trainer is kind of what dictates that, because we have a curriculum that we've developed side by side with our inmate trainers throughout the years on what's realistic to accomplish in prison training dogs, right? So this is what week 1 should look like, week 2, like we have all that written down, which is awesome. Took a long time to accomplish. But minimum 12 weeks so that the inmates can develop the skills they need for their state certifications. Some of them will get their dogs trained quicker, but Department of Corrections does have certain hours guidelines that the inmates have to be in class a certain number of hours to get a certain certification from the state. And they do give independent certifications for dog training, which is awesome. But yeah, mine is 12 to 16 weeks. Once dogs, Bing Bop is a little bit of an exception because people had already met him, seen him, known of him. Usually when a new dog comes into our program, nobody even knows it's there until it's been in training 4 to 6 weeks, right? That's when at that point, my organization and my volunteers, will list those dogs on Pet Finder and on social media as available for adoption. So at that point, the dog already has its K9 Good Citizen, it's got all its foundation training, but it's only halfway through the program. So that gives us another good 6 weeks or longer to find an adopter for that dog. And then once an adopter is matched with their dog, we have a date at the end of every month or every other month where the prison allows us to bring those adopters inside the prison so that they can get their turnover lesson when they pick up their dogs.
And that was going to be my next question, actually. I'm glad you said that. So who does that lesson? The inmate?
Yes, that's a part of their training as well. And that's actually something that, thinking about it right now, I don't ever have to train my guys how to do that anymore because we have, after this many years, that's the mentorship that goes on within the men that are already in the dog program. So it's really special when, say, I'll give you some examples. So I have an inmate named Raja Newman. That's his name. He loves Malinois, by the way. He's my Mal expert on the inmate team. And he's been responsible for growing several assistant trainers who have come, lived with him, been in the dog program, and then they've been released. His stay is much longer. And it's always a really proud moment for him. And then for us, for me, when we see one of Raja's apprentices do their go home lesson. And, I'm standing off to the side and I'm with Raja and we're sort of watching downfield, that other inmate kind of coach their new adopter what to expect, handing over the leash, showing them how to handle, correct, just like we do as professionals, right? This is the go home session. It's just like that. And then seeing that new inmate do their first turnover session and feel so proud that they did it. That might have been the first opportunity that they've interacted with someone from the outside in years. I mean, let that sink in. Not all of these guys have family or friends or visitors that have stayed committed to being in their life or coming to visit them while they're incarcerated. Some of these guys have no one. We're it. I'm it. The other inmates are it. So I think that's a very special moment when you, as an inmate lead trainer, get to teach someone else how to do the go home and then see them successfully do that turnover session.
Quick question backing up.
Yeah.
So going back to the bloodhound I had, I ended up getting her because I had a phone call from a lady who's like, look, this dog's been in this prison program for 6 months and her time is up. So she either, is euthanized or she's got to find a home. So we ended up taking her in. Is there limits on your program like that or?
That is a great question. So per my contract with Florida Department of Corrections, dogs cannot stay there at the prison for longer than a year. So it does happen. Like, I just actually moved a dog who hit the year mark, and I hate to have to do it. But now she has to be in boarding until she's adopted. And I think for the dog, that's got to be really soul crushing. I mean, it's like losing your home, right? Losing your stability. So I really, really try to get them adopted out on their cycle, but sometimes they just don't. But that's more rare. Most dogs are going to get adopted out so that by the time they finish the end of their cycle, they're ready to go. But because Magic City K9 as an organization legally owns these animals, they don't have to go back to the shelter. And that's another question I get a lot, when I'm doing presentations on how to start these programs. You have two ways you can do it. You can either open your own 501c3 like I did, because I'm a control freak. I'm like, no one's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do it my way. And then you're responsible for those animals 100%, right? Or as a trainer, maybe you already have a rescue group or a relationship with a small shelter that wants to partner with you, in which case all three of you would be on this contract, right? That Department of Corrections initiates. And so I think some trainers could feel more comfortable doing it that way, where a third party is responsible for the dogs, and then all they have to do is come in and just train the guys and train the dogs. And that's what I did with that service dog organization for years. But when it came to this particular program, I wanted to have ownership of those dogs also, so that I could control their outcome, because I've done it other ways, and it is heartbreaking if you invest that much time, energy, and love into these animals, and then they have to go back to the shelter and they do not get a positive outcome. I think that is the most devastating thing that can happen, and it is counterproductive to the overall morale for the inmates, and just counterproductive to these programs, right? Like, we want everyone to have a positive outcome.
All right, everybody, let's take a quick break to talk about our friends Aurora. Cold weather should not stop you or your dog from staying active and enjoying daily outside time. Aurora, the most trusted heated apparel brand in the US, has been the #1 heated apparel choice for dog trainers and owners for a decade. You can face chilly walks while staying toasty with Aurora's battery-heated jackets, vests, and gloves. Aurora even has a heated vest made especially for dogs. Visit Ororo.com, that's ORORO.com, to find the perfect heated apparel for you and your pup. Even better, you can use IACP, that's once again the code IACP, to get 15% off your new heated gear. Back to the episode.
I got kind of a weird question I thought of while you were talking about that. So if you've got a dog that needs urgent medical care or even just routine veterinary care, does the vet go to the prison? Does somebody from your group have to pick the dog up and take it to the vet? How does that work out? Because that seems like that could be complicated.
Yep. So that's an excellent question. And over time, I feel like I've developed a good strategy to handle every scenario. So first and foremost, with these programs, I think I'm pretty safe to say that no matter what correctional organization you work with, in which state, ain't nobody want to be involved with caring for your dogs. It's got to be you, okay? So if there is a life-threatening and emergency, it is on you to figure out how to get that dog out. It is not their job, nor do they have the personnel to drop what they're doing from a safety standpoint at the prison to get your dog to a vet. So I have a routine vet that I have a wonderful relationship with that not only gives me an excellent price, but above and beyond service for my prison dogs at her clinic. It still is half an hour away. That's typically how prisons are, right? They're not like next to your house. They're like way out on the edge of town. So you got a good half an hour to 40 minutes to get there, no matter what. So I have a routine vet that can see my dogs for non-emergencies. I have developed a relationship with an emergency clinic that can see my dogs for emergencies. And I have developed a relationship with a mobile vet for vaccines. And the reason that I say just vaccines is because it is, in my opinion, it is not worth a volunteer's time to drive out to the prison to get one dog, to bring it out, to get one shot and go back. Because the shots can't be administered inside of the institution, right? It has to be outside the gates. So if I have 4 or 5 dogs that have just expired on vaccines, it makes more sense for me to dispatch my mobile vet. And then what I can do is get a volunteer to go that day and help the prison facilitate, just like walk the dog out, shots in the van, back inside, walk the dog out, shots in the vet. So I've got a different veterinary provider depending on what the need is. So you need ideally, to make your life easy, you need a mobile vet on your team. You need a regular vet that's got your back, and a good relationship with emergency as well, that understands that as a nonprofit rescue, it's not the same as treating my dog that I've owned for 7 or 8 years. I want to do what I can for that animal, but I'm also resource limited as a rescue. And I have to work with veterinary professionals that understand that, despite how sometimes that doesn't always produce the outcome we want. And that has happened, right? I had a golden retriever many, many years ago in my other program that they called me in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. And they're like, the dog is lethargic. You know, his breathing is very labored. We don't know what's wrong. His gums look white. So I get out of bed, takes me 35 minutes with no traffic in the middle of the night in Miami to rush to the prison, pick him up. He's about dead at this point. I get him out to the emergency vet, and it turned out that he had eaten some rocks, I guess some rocks on the prison ground, and he ended up not making it. He was just too far gone at that point, you know, and I've always felt badly about that, because I think to myself, I probably would have had enough time had he been a dog living in my house, right? And I didn't have to drive 35 minutes out, wait 20 to 30 minutes at the gate. Now I have to drive another 35 minutes out, wait 20 minutes at the emergency clinic. I mean, for critical stuff like that, like, the time matters. So we have sadly had casualties in our programs where, like, you just have to accept that the nature of these programs sometimes means that you cannot get dogs the vet care that they deserve quickly enough. But the instances of that happening are so far and few between. Like, you shouldn't avoid doing these programs just because you're afraid that might happen. But it's a great question, Jason, because it is a sad reality of these particular types of programs. I've had one dog that had a seizure that I just couldn't get out to the prison in time to pick him up. We just couldn't get there. He passed away before we got there. So.
And forgive me if you've already answered this, but who picks the dogs, and how do they pick those dogs for this program?
So I personally pick the dogs for our program, which is also, I think, one of the unique selling points for our particular program, or any trainer that might feel inspired to do these type of programs. We, as professional trainers, understanding behavior, body language, social play with dogs, we're in a very good position to be able to do pet selection for people. And so I really do take that job seriously. And I have to qualify a lot of animals before I pick the ones that I think have the temperament that are going to withstand sudden change of environment, withstand the pressures of living in a busy prison, because it is very busy, it's noisy, you know, and yeah, but it's me. On my team, it's me who does the selections. And then I've, of course, developed partnerships with people at our municipal shelter as well that can help me save time by saying, like, hey, Kathy, like, can you pull together, like, 25 dogs that you think I might like? Thank you. Whereas I used to have to go, and it would take me like days and days to, like, hey, that one looks nice, let me pull it out. Like, that takes way too long. So over time, you develop relationships with your shelters, like rescue office, transport coordinators, whoever it is that already is sort of like pre-qualifying dogs for special programs, so that you can just go in one day, spend 4 hours at the shelter and say, okay, let me interview all the dogs that you have pre-picked for me.
Well, I've got a training question for you. Now, I feel like, did I hear you say once at conference that there's no leashes involved in the program?
Oh, we definitely have leashes. We can't use
they have
long
leashes.
lines. We can't use long lines.
No long lines. Okay.
Yes.
So I was going to ask, how are you walking these dogs in the yard without leashes? Okay, so they have a leash for that part of the process.
Yes,
Okay.
but training recall is definitely harder without a long line. And it's a big no-no to attach your leashes together. That will get you, well, when you're incarcerated, when we say that'll get you locked up, you're obviously already locked up. So what that specifically means is you're going to get sent to like the box, like to solitary confinement for something like that, like going against policies, having contraband, like doing all that. So you'll get yourself locked up if somebody catches you attaching leashes together. Like, that is a big no. Cannot do that. So we have 6-foot leashes that all of our dogs can have and use. And we have different types of leashes depending on what we're doing. So I've got nylon leashes as drag lines because, I've got biothane leashes as drag lines because those are going to get very, very dirty. I have some nice softer like nylon leashes that the guys can use for just training like indoors. I've got some fleecy tug rope leashes that we can use for walking the dogs, but then also real quick, like marking and rewarding like with tug toys. So we've got a lot of variety of 6-foot leashes that we can use independently. And then in my program, we're primarily using martingale collars. We love Heather Beck's Sidekick from Heather's Heroes. We love that tool. And then occasionally we will use a prong collar with our dogs. And that's a bit more privilege based because that particular tool is especially frowned upon in these types of programs. And so the way that I position it for my inmates is you have to really prove to me that you know what you're doing without this equipment before I trust you with this equipment, because it's a privilege to have it. And if you can't train a dog without it, you're not gonna be able to train a dog with it. Like that's my philosophy. So some of my lead trainers, they're allowed to have those in their collections, and then they're always going to come. We're going to talk it out. What's the need? Why we feel this serves the right purpose before we put that in a dog in our program.
What percentage would you say you're using a prong collar versus the martingale?
Oh, I probably use a prong on like, I don't know, 1 or 2 dogs a year out of 100 dogs. The head collar is definitely our tool of choice for my really strong pullers. And the Heather's Heroes specifically, not like a gentle leader. Too wimpy. we love our sidekicks. But then all the other guys, like they are expected, right, to train their dogs to heel nicely on just a martingale. So they can use pull management tools at the beginning of training, with the end goal being they need to have their dogs walking out of that prison trained to a heel on just a loose lead and a martingale.
And that's generally a 16-week program?
Yes. Yeah. Where that dog's attached to you all day, every day. So he's got a lot of opportunity to practice his leash skills. Because the dogs migrate with the inmates everywhere on the compound. So if the inmate is in movement, walking over to the rec yard or walking to the game room or going over here to talk to that person, like the dog goes. Inmates they're not always in their dorm. There's periods throughout the day where we say like the yard is open for movement. So they just can move around the city that is the prison. And the only place their dog is not allowed to go is into the chapel. So that's the church on campus or on the compound. Not allowed to go into the dining hall, and not allowed to go into the medical building. Everywhere else the dog is permitted to go, even including classroom time. So if your dog already has nice settle skills and is quiet and respectful, and your instructor for your GED class or whatever it is says, yeah, sure, Scott, bring your dog with you. You can take your dog to class.
Are there other specific enrichment things that they do for the dogs in that program?
Oh my gosh, we have so many. We have an agility set. We've got like a million dog puzzle toys that the dogs can do. Obviously, training every day is a big part of their enrichment. Our program in particular, just because it's very established and we have buy-in from our institution, we're allowed to have Frisbees. And that was like, I remember many years ago when we got Frisbees, we're like, yes, like they're going to let us throw an object. Like that's huge though. You can't just be like, can I get a Frisbee for my dog in prison? Like, no. But the guys like to play Frisbee with their dogs. What else do we have? We have our kiddie pools, that they can swim in. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of equipment that they can play on.
Cool.
So back to actual training.
Yeah.
Are you able to use food?
Absolutely. Okay. And the core of the way that I teach trainers, right? Because I'm essentially running a training academy in prison. Like as a dog trainer in the free world, you can't come to Dee Hoult's Academy for dog trainers. It doesn't exist yet. You have to be incarcerated if you want to come into my academy. But don't do that. So I have the inmates using their dog's meal portion for training. And I think a lot of us do that with a standard board and train, right? Like we want to be able to use the calories that our dog is already supposed to get for training. But we do also allow them to use treats. At the beginning, though, I want them to focus on just hand feeding and using the food the dog already needs to have for training and not be reliant on, oh, my dog will only work for pepperoni. I'm like, something's going wrong if your dog will only work for the pepperoni, right? So we don't feed our dogs in bowls. They have bowls for water, but they do hand feed their dogs throughout the day from their treat pouch for training, and then use higher value items as the training progresses or if they're struggling with more distractions and stuff like that, which we all get donated, by the way. Like we've got a nice Amazon wish list for anyone who wants to go to our find our wish list on Amazon or at magiccityk9.org. We have the link there too. And treats are definitely the number one item that we never don't need. Like we always need treats. So feel free. Send us all the cookies.
Guys, we just want to give a quick shout out to one of our longtime ICP sponsors, Blue Nine Pet Products. So, are you looking to level up your training classes and boost client success? The Climb by Blue Nine Pet Products is the professional's go-to platform. It's built for clearer communication, easier class management, and better owner follow-through. Plus, it's a proven way to increase revenue. Trainers across the country sell the Climb right from their facility. And I know we sell a lot of them. We use them in group classes, shelter programs, lots of different ways we implement the Climbs. And with exclusive wholesale pricing, there's never a better time to get started. Visit blue9.com to apply today and start building a better training business. Just came up with a new tagline for my school for dog trainers.
What is it?
You don't have to be incarcerated to learn from us.
Pretty good.
You
right?
wanted to,
I mean,
I like
that's a
it.
big plus.
Yeah. Yeah, but if we used to be incarcerated, we don't discriminate. That's you. That can be like this. Right. This my tagline for the longest time for Applause Your Paws is, you don't have to be rough to teach your dog stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's trademarked. And that's my mantra. I'm always like, you don't have to be. You know, like you can be firm, you can be fair, but you don't have to be harsh. You don't have to be rough with your dog. Like, you know, stay the course, learn what you're doing, and anybody can train a dog, right?
Well, let's circle back to recall. So recall without a long line.
Okay.
And I'm just intrigued what their process looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because for an incredible trainer or like a very experienced trainer, sure, super doable when you're great at dog body language and understanding their threshold and what sets them off, all the things, right? But I'm picturing someone newer to the program. That sounds really difficult to train a dog recall without a long line. How are they doing it? What are the challenges you see?
Yeah, so they're going to start at a short distance inside and just utilize their leash, right? So a lot of like end of the leash, come front, reward, get that kind of down pat inside, low distraction. We don't really have like hallways at the prison that we could use to kind of guide a dog to go a further distance. So that's out of the question. But what we do have at our particular institution is we have one side of Delta dorm. So the dorms are named by letters like, you know, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, right? So my dogs live in Delta and Echo. So on the side of Delta dorm, there's a long side, and typically no matter what time of day it is, just because of how it is, it's shaded on this one little strip of side, and it's pretty close to a fence. And that fence is not an exterior fence. So this is important because when you are in a dog program in prison, another thing that'll get you locked up is if you get caught walking your dog too close to a perimeter fence. That's a big no. Don't go near it. But this is an interior fence within a fence. So who cares? Nobody cares that you're next to it. So what the guys will do is they'll recruit other guys or other handlers in the program to basically go stand, like you stand way over here, I stand way over here, so that if my dog makes a run for it, they're not going to be able to do it because the opening in between the fence and the building is only so big. It's like the only spot where we train the dogs where you can sort of like funnel them into a little area, right? So they use that particular area for recalls. And they've got to have 4 inmate guards, essentially, that are standing there waiting to catch a rogue dog while they practice their recalls, because at some point, yes, you got to turn the dog loose to practice the skill. We also have a fenced in area that's designated for off-leash dog play. So a lot of them will use that area too for recall. They'll just go in there by themselves with their dog. But we've also got a lot of just open grassed places where they can play with their dog once the dog is off-leash reliable. They definitely utilize, though, that one particular space where it's possible that you can prevent your dog from getting reinforced for the wrong behavior. And that's sort of the critical thing, right? Like, I can't just go into a field with a novice dog and be like, I'm going to hope for the best, because all it takes is a couple times, that dog screwing around and realizing that he can blow you off. And there's the end of your recall. You got no way to set him up for success. There's just too literally wide of a margin, right, for error. So yeah, we utilize the side of Delta Dorm specifically for that purpose. And I'm sure every institution has got to have at least one area that you can be like, oh, like that's where my guys are going to practice recall.
So it sounds like basically institutional knowledge in the group of inmates, where, and you mentioned this earlier, you have someone who's been there longer that's able to show them, here's how you can work on recall without your dog getting loose and now you're chasing him around and then you get in trouble.
Yes, absolutely. It's hard at first. The first year of any dog program that's new and gets set up, there's so many things I wouldn't even think to list because it's been so long since I started a new one, right? That you're just going to have to work out the kinks to figure out how is this going to work the best.
Well, for someone listening who's intrigued in starting one of these programs, what would your advice be? Where do they start? Who do they contact? What does that process look like?
Awesome. That's a great question. So every state has a website for their Department of Corrections. So what you need to do is you need to go on that state website. And actually, let me sidetrack for just a second to just point out, for those that might not be aware, jail is different than prison. Okay. So when we talk about, because people go, oh, she has a jail program. I go, no, I have a prison program. And that's very important because jail as a system is typically too volatile to run these types of programs. So don't waste your time trying to approach a county jail, the city jail, whatever it is. Like, that's probably just not going to happen. You need a prison because a prison provides the stability that's needed for these types of programs. So when people are in jail, they're waiting to be sentenced. They're there for less than 364 days. So that's not really long enough either to teach somebody how to be a professional dog trainer, in my opinion, right? So you want a prison, and you want a prison that has re-entry programs. That's the key word, re-entry programs. It's going to be a lot harder to go convince a prison that has no programs for its inmates that they should have a dog program. But if they already have established vocational programs at that particular institution, then they're already what we call program friendly. They're wardens, assistant wardens, classifications officers, all these players. They are programs that help the inmates get ready to transition back to society. So that's easier to walk in the door. So you go on your state website for whatever your Department of Corrections is. You find the email address. It's always listed for the person who's in charge of programs. And you just reach out, introduce yourself, and you have my full permission because this is very helpful. I don't care if you're watching this podcast and you actually know me or you don't. You have my permission to say, I know Dee Hoult, who runs a very successful program in Miami, Florida with Department of Corrections, and she's been doing it for 15 years. So, as you go into this relationship with the prison, you can make it very clear that you have a person. Here I am. I will stand behind you. You have a person who's willing to help you give the information to the prison that they are definitely going to need when you're not going to have the answer. Okay, so you've got that. You watched this podcast, you listened to this podcast today, you now know Dee Hoult, and you can use my name to facilitate that door opening, okay? So
I'm going to use that next time I get pulled over. I'm going to be like, I know Dee Hoult.
Absolutely.
Like, who? By the way, no one wants me to serve on a jury. They will reject me for jury duty because I'm biased and I love inmates. It's great. Yes.
I'm using that one too.
So you find the contact information for the reentry programs person, and you just introduce yourself and you say, I'm interested in starting a dog program. That's what they're called. A dog program. Basic. I want to start a dog program at your prison. Is this something we could set up a meeting about? Don't give too much information. Don't go into your whole background. Nobody cares. I'm telling you, they don't care. It's a yes or no. If someone will give you a yes, awesome. Let's set up a site visit. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can bring to the table. You do already have to know, though, where the dogs would come from. Before you start that conversation with an institution, you need to know where your dogs are going to come from. So you either need to be prepared to supply them yourself or already have another partner on board that's going to supply the dogs.
It's a lot of good advice.
But it's pretty
So
easy.
Jason-
And if there's prison programs already in your state, that makes it even easier. That means your central office, there's another terminology for you. You have your regional office people, and then you have your central office people. Your central office programs people are really the decision makers for these programs. Okay. So if your state already has successful programs, or if there are successful programs anywhere near you, that also works in your favor because there's already someone there running a program.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm sure the bureaucrats are the ones who are able to make this happen or not happen.
Right. It's not just about, because I've seen it happen, like, it's not just about some officer at the prison or saying, like, we want to have a dog program here. Like, if those regional programs people or those central office programs people are not on board, it really doesn't matter what the institution wants.
That makes sense. Well, we are almost out of time here. Jason, what else do you think we should cover, or what have we missed?
Just back up, clarifying. So y'all two don't just play with puppies all day?
Well, today
No.
I'm playing with puppies, though. When I'm up here in the mountains, I technically do just play with puppies. I do my desk work, and then because I need my fix to actually touch a dog, I go volunteer with the Humane Society to play with some puppies.
Well, it's afternoon, and all I have done today is train Frenchies.
What?
That's it. 3 of them.
Matt's favorite breed, man. Huskies and Frenchies and Golden Doodles.
I specialize in Frenchies now. It's
You
been
want
my
to know
whole
what
day.
my favorite breed is now? I swear, any of my shelter friends, I will, don't kill me when you hear me say this, because I'm not saying that I don't love my shelter dogs. Of course I love my shelter dogs. You know me better than that. I love my shelter dogs. But my favorite breed now is definitely the Bernedoodle. It's not even a breed. I just talk about just like fun, social, easygoing, happy. I don't know about you guys, I find them to be a lot more like even temperamented than the Golden Doodles. They're not as like anxious or high strung, at least not the ones that I'm seeing. I love me a good
Are you
Bernedoodle,
seeing
man.
the minis, though? The mini Bernedoodles are little wackadoos.
Are they
at least the ones I
wackadoodle?
see.
Oh,
The
yeah.
bigger they are, the more chill they are.
I've
big
been
ones
seeing a
are
lot of
like-
the standards.
Yeah, the big ones are like Eeyore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
the standard Bernedoodles. Oh, I just love them. I never thought I would say that out loud, but there it is. I could train them all day, every day, just like la 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 la, you know. So
But to your point, Matt, it's been my experience that pretty much anything with mini in front of it is a wackadoodle.
Yes.
The mini Aussies, the mini Bernedoodle, the mini
Mhm.
Golden Doodle, they're
mini
all
sheepadoodle.
they're all a little. Yeah.
I'm not sure I've seen a mini sheepadoodle, but the full-sized ones have been enough, so I can't imagine a mini.
They make small ones. Yes, they do.
I'll leave you guys with this. So in Magic City K9's, we didn't cover this. I am targeting pit bulls, right? Like Bing Bop. Pit bull, American bulldog type breeds over 50 pounds. Like that's my jam. Not that I don't throw in an occasional border collie or something else in there that I like, but for me, for these programs, pit bulls are where it's at. And I'm always telling my guys, because a lot of them they've never trained a dog, right? They come into my program, they don't have experience. And I say, you have no idea how easy it's going to be for you to train somebody's Golden Doodle after 3 years of training pit bulls from the shelter, because our dogs that I put in that program really do equip our men with the skills they need. By the time they get out, they've seen everything, they've done everything, like, and training someone's doodle is like, they could do it with their eyes closed. And I know, you know, as trainers, like, you know what I mean by that, right? Because the pit bull has, for me, it has all the best qualities that like a Labrador has. Like, it's bouncy, it's joyful, it's food motivated, it likes to work, but it's also not always an easy dog. So you gotta, you know, you gotta learn to read body language really well, because they're powerful. And especially the ones that come in, it might come to light that they're not as dog social as we thought they were, or they have guarding tendencies, or they're protective of the cell that they live in with their inmate. Like, they are not golden doodle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you really want to up their skill level, make them start training Frenchies.
They wouldn't survive the Miami summer.
No, they would not. That is always when people ask what I think about training Frenchies. The hardest part is so many of them are reactive on leash, and then you can only train them like 8 minutes at a time before you have to go back inside and cool off.
At night.
Yeah.
At night.
So you get like maybe a half hour of good training per day with these dogs when you need them outside in the summer. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's hard to fix.
Well, for anybody that ends up watching this podcast, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Also, if anyone listening feels like they want to come visit me in Miami and they have something really cool and interesting that they want to come speak about to my inmates, the door is open. We love visitors. You can get on my speaker rotation. I do have funding in place to be able to fly you here. So if you're willing to volunteer your time to come share knowledge with my guys, we would love to have you.
Awesome. Sounds pretty awesome. Cool. Well, thank you, Dee. Appreciate you coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy your afternoon.
That was a
too.
pleasure.
Welcome to Dog Pro Radio. Yo, listen. Dog Pro Radio, yo, active watch. It's Dog Pro Radio, brings back the buses. Dog Pro Radio, and mates alike. Dog Radio, brings back tonight. Dog Pro Radio, yo, active watch. It's Dog Pro Radio, brings back the buses. Dog Pro Radio, and mates.